Today's topic, first of all, I'd like to introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. Ayse Hogan, I'm the visionary and founder of IAUSM, and IAUSM is the International Academy of Universal Self-Mastery. I'm also a spiritual reverend, which means that I am non-denominational, and this is not religious in any way. So do feel free to join in, to make comments. I've got this up now, so if any of you have any comments that you want to make through Facebook, please do so, or through the chat in the Zoom. And in future, if any of you want to actually be part of this on Zoom so that you can interact live, then please join us at IAUSM.com. That's IAUSM.com. It's free access for all students and people who just want to step into a better version of themselves. So please do come in, and then you can come into these events and we can actually talk live. So that's really great. So today we're going to be talking about what is awakening. So we're going to do like the 101 of awakening this morning. So some of you are hearing the term awakening for the first time, and some of you have heard about awakening, and some of you are in it at some level. You are in it, and it's happening to many all over the world. And lots of people have spoken about it or know that there is a shift coming or a transformation, an evolution, an involution. It's a human liberation. In my own case, I felt the shift, the transformation coming for about a decade. When I realized I felt like something was coming. I didn't know what it was. I felt like things were going to change. I couldn't really put my finger on it exactly as to what that was. And it wasn't until more recently, in the last couple of years, especially actually since COVID, that I started to notice more. And I think more people started to notice more too. So not just me in that. I don't feel like I am alone in that or special because of that. I think that, a lot of us have been noticing that. But that's a huge conversation for another day, and I can really go on all day about that. So we're not going to talk about that today, but we are going to talk about what is awakening. So Jesus called this a salvation, the salvation, and Buddha called it the end of suffering, and the Hindu called it the enlightenment. And even though someone like myself was aware of it for only a decade, like I said, it's been coming for a long time, and it's pretty clear that when these terms were used a long time ago, back in those days, we weren't evolved enough to really understand what it meant. We didn't understand what enlightenment meant. We didn't understand what salvation meant. We didn't understand what liberation meant, because we were too consumed with ourselves to really understand the full meaning of what it really truly meant. So the meaning of these words, the definitions of these words, the interpretations became very skewed and very self-serving. So to understand the awakening, you have to experience it. That's really the only way to understand it. But if it's only even a little peek behind the veil, once you've had like a glimpse of it, you can't unsense it. And you can't unfeel it, and you want to know more about it. And even those that have had the glimpse and are afraid of it, I can confidently tell you that you will want to know more, but trying to turn your back on it and unfeel it is only going to bring more confusion into your world, because you're going to know deep down intuitively that there is something more going on, and that you need to be on a more conscious level. So it can be confusing for some, and it can strike fear in many people. So in my own personal experience, I can tell you that it opens a beautiful hunger for you to be better, to begin to remember more and more about who you are and what you are, to reclaim it on a more conscious level. You begin to understand that you're not the driver in this life. You are the vehicle. And you're not the dancer. You're the dance. And you are not living life. You are life. So you begin to understand or allow yourself to be open to the concept that, you know what, maybe I didn't know this right, or maybe I thought about this wrong, or maybe my beliefs need to be updated, right? Or maybe I need to do some research on this and try to understand a little bit more what this is about. But it opens up the questions in your awareness. It's more of a remembering who you are. So there's human people, there's people waking up all over the world, and there are lots of people who are still asleep. And when I say that, I'm saying that from a place of grace. You know, whether you're awake or whether you're asleep, you're just exactly where you're supposed to be on your journey. And everything, of course, is as it should be. So once you're awakened at any level, like I said, you can never, never, never go back. There's just no turning back. Even if you slow it down, even if you try to put it over here and not pay attention to it, eventually it's going to be up in your face. So there's really no way to get away from it. So awakening is when each of us realizes or senses or is intuitively aware that this body that we are in is nothing but a form, an avatar for each of us to experience this life, right? But that there is something more than that, a formless part of us. And most of us, so if I was going to talk about my own energy field, I would say that if this was it, this microphone was my energy field, this little red dot that says that I'm live on here would probably be this form. The rest of it would be my formless self. Okay, so formless, you know, where the form is temporary, our avatar is temporary. We know that death is part of life. It just is. The formless part of us is eternal. It's immortal. It's infinite. There is no time. It goes on and on forever. There is no beginning. There is no end. So awakening is remembering on some level, however minute that is, that we're connected to everything and everyone, and that there is no separation, and that there is only the I. So I'm saying the I with quotation marks because I'm going to talk about, you know, the I as a pronoun, I, me, requires that you need to be separate, right? But the I, the creator, the all-knowing I, right, understands that, or when we can look at that I that way, as all of us are part of that, then we understand that we're like threads from the same cloth, that we are cells in the same I, a thought, a fraction of, right? We are not separate. And the struggle or the challenge is our conditioning for a millennia that has led us to believe that the I is separate from one another, and that separation has created the world that we're experiencing now and have been experiencing for a very long time. So this awakening that many of us are starting to experience is going to change all that. Right, is going to change all that. So let's imagine, I like making things relatable. So let's imagine something together for a minute. Allow yourself to imagine that you are sitting in front of your computer, which you may be right now, and let's call you the master programmer. And let's also imagine that you can see into your computer effortlessly. So you can see the motherboard and you can see all the components. Okay, so you're sitting in front of a computer, you can see through your computer, you can see the motherboard and all the components that are on the motherboard. Okay, so now using this scene, let's take it to a grander scale. Let's imagine that the motherboard is now Mother Earth. And let's imagine that each component on this Mother Earth is a life form of some sort. Human, dog, cat, tree, whatever. Okay, so every component is something on that Mother Earth, that motherboard. And let's imagine that the master programmer is the creator of all, the master I. Okay, so we all know how to use a computer. We all understand a motherboard. We all understand that there's components that make it work, right? So if we look at the universe, everything, and you've allowed yourself to imagine this, then you can understand that there's no separate I, and that each of the components has a role on Mother Earth. There's no separation. This is a cohesive individualism, each component being individual, but cohesive with the whole. They must work together to power the program and the computer effectively. Because what would happen if the components started doing their own thing and just, this one's over there and this one's doing its thing over there, and they're not working cohesively? What would happen is the program would then create a virus. Okay, it just wouldn't work. There'd be dysfunction, right? This is what we're experiencing now, this dysfunction, right? So when we understand this about ourselves on some level, you become awakened. You're conscious. You don't have to understand how all the components work or the intricacies of all the mechanics behind it all. You're simply aware that this form that we're in, this avatar, is part of something much bigger. It's part of something much bigger. It doesn't stand separate from something much bigger. It is a part of something that is much bigger. Okay, which goes kind of against what we've been taught for so many years. So it's like, there's a point where we have to sit down and go, you know what? All this conditioning that we've had is like, maybe it has been wrong. And it's time to uncondition the conditioning. Because if no one understood it back a millennia ago, they weren't there to explain it to you, to allow that kind of belief to come into your system. So now we are more evolved. We're starting to understand this about ourselves. So many of you refer to yourselves. I see it a lot when people are signing their signatures on things, or when they're on Zoom, they're saying, I am he, him, she, her, they, them. And we use the word I and me to explain ourselves. But these pronouns keep us separate from the whole. So just think about that for a second. I, with quotation marks, have chosen another set of pronouns. I now don't refer to myself as he, her, they, them, him, her, him, he. It's we, us, I. We, us, I. I am you. You are me. And whether you believe this or not, it doesn't change the fact that that's what it is. So when we perform heinous acts upon each other, or try to control each other, or power struggle, we're performing them against ourselves. And then our growth and our transformation and our salvation becomes set back again. Because we're going against our transformation, against our salvation, against our awakening. Now, the cool thing is that there is individualism, meaning you have choices. There is karma, free will to an extent, because the master programmer does have some say on what's going on. So to an extent, we also have a major dysfunction to deal with. And that is a virus that we have to deal with, which we call the ego. And anyone who says that they don't have this is speaking from their ego. Every human has this virus. It is inside every human component on the motherboard. So you can't get away from ego, but there are ways to deal with it. And we do have choices. The virus, if we allow it, can lead a person to madness. And I want to say, don't say, oh, not me. I'm not mad. I'm not, paranoid. I don't have all this. But think about it. What is madness? In this state, in this way, it is self-judgment. It's judgment of others. It's self-preservation, thoughtless acts towards others, selfishness, power, control. Control is the biggest virus inside the virus. Separation, segregation, discrimination, class, caste, right? It's all madness. It is madness because we're not separate. So when we do all of this, it's like we're doing it to ourselves, which is madness. There's no separation on a conscious level. There's no judgment on a conscious level because there can't be. It's not possible. There's only honor and grace when you're on that conscious level of awareness. It's when we're working from the ego, we are in this delusion. We live as ego, the virus, the dysfunction. And in our individualism, we begin to try to, as we get awakened to the fact that this is the truth. This is faith. Faith is not a religion, it's the truth. Then you start stepping into your salvation. When you get into that awakened state, when you allow yourself to be aware of the ego, we can't get away from it, but you can become aware of it. Then you start stepping into your salvation, your liberation, your transformation, your awakening. And we've spent forever, it seems, on focusing on our external world. What do we have? What can we control? What can we achieve on the outside? How much money can we make? How much can we own? How entitled are we? How scarce, what kind of scarcity do we live in? And as our ego binges for more and more, we still feel unfulfilled, unhappy. So what do we want? We want more. We always just want more. That's the ego. So success is not necessarily fulfillment. These two are not hand in hand. You can seem successful, but yet feel unhappy and unfilled. So why is that? It's because you're attempting to satisfy the ego, and the ego is never satisfied or has enough, and it will never be satisfied. It's like bulimic. It binges and binges and binges, and then it's unfilled. Still feels the same, crappy, right? Still feels like something's missing, still feels the void, right? How many people do we know? I mean, let's talk about, I've said this before, celebrities, people who have everything. You would think that they are success, they feel fulfilled, and yet you see them committing suicide. Why? Dying in hotel rooms, drug overdoses. Why? Because there's a void, right? So attempting to satisfy the ego is madness. It's a paranoid delusion. It's pathological, right? It's a collective mental illness. It's the virus. And it's been called, this virus has been called Maya by Indian sages. It's been called dukkha in Buddhism, and it's been called sin in Christianity. So what is sin, dukkha, Maya? To sin does not mean what most of us think it means, okay? It means to miss the mark. To sin means to miss the mark. It means to live unskilled, blindly, and to cause suffering to others and to suffer. To live in misery and to cause others to live in misery. That is sin, dukkha, Maya. Right? It's not what we thought. That's not what we've been told it is. So ego will trick you, even when you're in this awareness, even when you are being conscious of it. The minute that you let down your guard, ego's there to tempt you with the madness. And the healing of this is awareness, to be in your consciousness, to be aware of this, to step off of autopilot where we spend 90%, 97% of our day, and to step into awareness and spend 97% of your day there instead. To live in cohesiveness with ego is to be aware of it and know that it's nothing but a virus, a dysfunction in the form. So you can make your choices through awareness despite what your ego says. Right? Make your choices from a place of awareness, a place of consciousness, because you can't battle against the ego. It's not possible. By attempting to battle against the ego, you're only going to strengthen it. So simply be aware and be conscious of it, and then shine in your own light from a place of awareness and consciousness. Okay? So you focus your consciousness and your awareness on your inner world rather than your external world. It doesn't matter how much you have. Okay, that's not important. Anybody can access this. It's available to all of us. It doesn't matter what you have, what you own, how much money you have in the bank. It doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't matter if you live in a house or you live on the street. We can all access our own inner wisdom, our own inner, like that's where the healing begins, not by buying things, not by having things, not by controlling people, not by having power over people. That is never going to work. That is never going to work. And that type of thinking is going to become very obsolete very soon as we evolve and evolve. We're in the middle of this huge shift, this quantum leap, and you can't believe that that type of thinking is going to be coming with us. It's not. So the world inside each of us, into our awareness, our consciousness, where everything true, that's where things that the things that matter reside. There. You will never find it in a store somewhere. You know, you just won't. You won't find it in a boardroom. That's not where it's going to be found. It's found inside of you. So when you step into this world, that is true achievement. That's where you begin to feel fulfilled, even though you don't even know all the moving pieces, and you don't have to, right? You can step out of sin, out of dukkha, out of maya, out of the madness, into your faith, into your truth. It's always been there. It's always been there. You've always had it. You never didn't have it. You just didn't know. And you have to be present, right? You simply need to be there and to be present. So as I move into ending this gathering today of awareness, and you know, if anyone has any questions or anything, I'm going to be here every Sunday just talking about different things. And I would love to start building this, you know, build it and they will come. Well, you know, I'm sharing the words and we'll see what happens with that. But in ending this gathering of awareness today, I want to give you a quote from Eckhart Tolle. It says, "You cannot be good by trying to be good. It's in finding that goodness within you and allowing it to emerge. It can only emerge if something fundamental changes in your state of consciousness." Okay, you cannot be good by trying to be good. There must be some fundamental change in your state of consciousness. It has to come from inside of you. And awareness and consciousness go hand in hand. So now you have an aware choice to make. Do you choose to live unconscious the way most of us do, like robots listening to our ego and allow the ego virus to call the shots? Or do you choose to be aware of the ego and make your decisions consciously, outside of the mind, through your inner wisdom? Because you are so very powerful and without limitation. You are everything. And when you can commit to that remembrance, even though you may not remember it all, it doesn't matter. That's not important. Just committing to that remembrance, just committing to understanding that you are without limit, just living in that consciousness and awareness, it's going to transform the life around you. And if you listen to the words of Dr. Wayne Dyer, when you change your energy, everything around you will change. It must. There just simply is no other option. So I'm going to send massive love to all of you. And thanks for joining this gathering this week. And I hope to see you and hear from you next week. This is just our second one now. So over time, I'm sure we'll be filled with people because, in IAUSM, we're starting to grow IAUSM, which is IAUSM.com. IAUSM, right? It's a support system to help people through their awakening. It's to help people, allow them to be who they want to be without all the noise from the outside, with the support of mentors from all over the world. So if you'd like to join this gathering live on Zoom and be part of the discussion, then I would love for you to do that. You could just request free access to IAUSM from our site. And I'm sending you all massive love. And thanks for joining today. And I hope to hear and see from you. I hope to hear from you this week and next week. And comments, questions, feel free to put them in the feed. I will definitely get back to you. Have a great day and much love. Thank you.